I'm excited for you to meet my friend Diane Watkins. Diane is one of my newer Enneagram students, and I have to say, I have seen how her work with the Enneagram has really impacted her as a mom and as a wife and as a friend. I love the way that she vulnerably shares about the fact that she kind of found her power when she became a mom and how she's learned to advocate for her children really, really well. Diane has 2 kids and a very needy dog, as she always says, and she is working really hard to embrace that core message of the 9 that you matter, and therefore being able to speak up for yourself and for the ones you love. So I know you're going to love this episode. I'm so proud of Diane for being brave and saying yes. Here's Raising Up the Next Generation with Diane Watkins. This is 9 in 9, Enneagram Wisdom for Life. Let's dive in. Diane, so nice to have you back. Today we're going to talk about being an Enneagram 9 and motherhood. So, all right, let's start with the fact that the 9s are in this power and control triad. How do you see that coming through as a mom?
Well, I'd kind of like to start with is I didn't really feel power and control probably until becoming a mom is kind of how I looked at it. I never really felt like I had much power until becoming a mom, if that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
I suddenly had somebody else that I had to take care of and advocate for and make sure that everything went well for. And that really kind of blossomed my ability to stand up for myself and speak out. So, but the biggest thing with having elementary age kids right now is I would love it if they never fought or argued or whined and complained.
Yeah,
um,
that would be nice.
it's I love peace and I love quiet and I don't like nagging, but nobody does. But just the noise can really just kind of get to me and the busyness um and 2 kids wanting me at the same time. It's just that can be draining, I feel like, especially as a 9, and and then keeping calm because it can be hard to keep calm as a mom.
Yeah. Well, keeping calm. Let's talk about the fact that I think people are often surprised to learn that 9s have that same anger as
Mhm,
that core emotion as
mhm,
the 8,
mhm,
and the 1. And so, but for a 9, it often kind of comes out, yeah, in these little passive ways. And
mhm.
so, how do you experience that core emotion of anger? And was that surprising to you when you learned more about being a 9?
It was surprising to me. I know that I like to lash out occasionally. Um, it's and sometimes it can be very hard to suppress because I feel like as a 9, you're constantly trying to suppress your need for calm and peace. And so it's just kind of like it bottles up, and
Yes.
then it's overflows and explodes to anger.
Yeah. So you find that you feel the anger,
Hmm.
and then do you try not to let it out because you're concerned about the conflict it might create, or what does that look like?
Well, depends on the situation. Sometimes I try to ask, like say, I need mommy needs a little break. Yeah, if I was out with my kids, for example, and they were really getting at each other and me, they may not know that I'm angry. I'm able to hold it in, but it's starting to bubble.
Yeah. Can you talk about what are some of the best things about being a mom as an Enneagram 9?
Well, I think being able to read your kids, even in a crowded room or at the park, and kind of knowing when something's just a little off,
Yeah.
or and maybe what they need to make it better, whether it just be water or a little break. Just reading people and their needs
Yeah.
is very important.
What's hard about it, about being a 9 and being a mom?
What's hard? There's not much peace and harmony would be my biggest complaint. There's lots of rough waters, being a mom, and and doubting yourself.
Yeah. What does that sound like in your mind?
Well, as a 9, you usually are more past centered, and so it's kind of hard to look to the future and see how, oh yeah, they're going to be fine. No, you're still thinking about, oh, this happened and this happened.
Yeah.
Another thing I think is hard is just taking things too personally, when different comments are made, whether by your children or your partner. It just really sticks with you as a 9, and you just think about it and think about it and think about it. Even if you know it was kind of said, in passing or not real truthfully, it really wounds you, I would say.
Yeah. And how often are you likely to speak up when that happens?
Not real often. Um, Sometimes depending on what I'm feeling. If I know I'm just gonna explode, then maybe I'll try to hide it more if depending on the situation. But it's conflict is hard.
Yeah. And yeah, there's not a day that goes by. There isn't a little bit of
Mhm,
conflict somewhere within mothering, whether it's
mhm,
just like an internal conflict of how do I handle this, or it's actual conflict between kids, or conflict of what they want versus what you want to do that day, or weekend plans. Like there's a lot of navigating
mhm.
that. So what would you say to the mom who thinks she's a 9? She has these gifts of knowing how to make a plan, knowing what to do, staying organized, helping other people be organized, but she is worried about that initial step of speaking up, or of getting involved.
Say just try it. the
Yeah.
the first step definitely is the hardest,
Yeah.
coming out of the shadows. but
Yeah.
um but you definitely build your confidence doing it. And I think once you do it once, you're more willing to do it the second time, and
Yeah.
so on. And also, I would say that it's very hard as a 9 to speak up for yourself and to remember that you matter.
Mm.
Um, a lot of times, and I know we've talked about this, I don't always know what I even want in a certain situation. Um, what do I want to happen? Well, a lot of times I might know with my kids, but how do I go from there? And it's just really important to acknowledge your feelings, not just everyone else's.
Yeah. Yeah. And having that courage
Yes,
to,
having the courage to know that you matter and that you should continue on.
yeah, and say the thing. Like,
Hmm.
say the thing. If, yeah, that's really good, Diane. Thank you. Hey, do you need some free advice about raising up the next generation? I've got a 1-page document that highlights a piece of advice and wisdom from each of the women this month.